Hello.
Hello, everybody. Hi, I want to
Hello.
welcome everybody to the Resident and Family Support Council. I hope everyone is having a good day. A couple of things before we get into today's topic that I wanted to share. One is that the Illinois State Ombudsman now has a Facebook page. So anybody who is on Facebook, please get on there and find out what's happening in the state through the State Ombudsman's page. And also get on there and like it for us. One of the things I wanted to share with you about that is that these meetings, the recordings to these meetings will be linked to that page. So that way, then if you can't make it to the meeting, you'll be able to do that via the Facebook page. I also want to share with everybody that if you're not a Facebook person, you can also just get on to the Illinois Department of Aging's website and go to the page for the State Ombudsman. And from there, you can click on the Resident and Family Support Council, and you will be able to see the meeting recordings as well as the PowerPoints for the presentations that we've had thus far. That way, then you could share those with other people, or again, if you do miss a meeting, you'll be able to access it via that website. So we're really excited that we finally were able to work that out. Then the last announcement that I have is that we will be doing a town hall meeting next Wednesday, which is the 28th of July at 10 o'clock in the morning. And if you are interested in receiving the link for that and the invitation for that, please go ahead and type your name in the chat box, and I will make sure to take that out of the chat box so that I can use those and forward you an invitation. We're really excited about this town hall meeting. The focus is to really amplify the residents' voice so that we can get a greater understanding about what people need and how things have been going for those that live in long-term care. Joining us in the town hall, Kelly Richards, the State Ombudsman, will be hosting that. And on the panel will be IDPH, Deborah Bersall, Karen Trimberger, and Dr. Kennard, who have joined us before for the Resident Family Councils, and also Bruce Carmona, who has been a standing participant in these calls as well. He will be a resident participant on that panel. So again, we're really excited about this happening next Wednesday at 10 o'clock, Wednesday the 28th at 10 o'clock. Type your email address in. We'll then be able to forward a email invite with the link on that for you. Today's topic is care plans, what we need to know, and it's going to be presented by Teresa Coleman, who is actually, she's presented for us before, where she's always does a wonderful job. Teresa will be sharing with us about care plans and why this is such an important topic. So we'll have the questions. Please type them out and put them in the chat box. And we have our people that are monitoring that chat box so that we can answer those questions moving forward. Teresa, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Lee. I will get this going just as soon as I can share my screen. And let's see, we got that one. Share. Hopefully you can see it.
Yep, we got it.
Okay, I have a little bit of faith in technology. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. Let me see if I can get rid of this. Like Lee said, my name is Teresa Coleman, and you can see the screen, so good. I have no faith in technology. So I am the Regional Ombudsman for Area 4. So that is right pretty much in the middle of the state. So what we're presenting today is, I'm sorry, was that a question? Maybe background noise. Okay, so what is a care plan? What are we talking about? A care plan, or perhaps we're talking about a service plan. For the sake of this presentation, I'll be referring to the meeting that we're talking about as the care plan, but it is also a service plan depending on the type of facility where your loved one may be residing. So the care plan meetings are actually a regulatory requirement for skilled care nursing facilities. Unless the resident is in crisis, most care plan meetings are held on a quarterly basis, but the resident and or the family may request one at any time if they feel that there is a need. For instance, if you felt that your loved one was losing a lot of weight and you thought something was going on, you might request a care plan meeting to discuss that. If there's any other changes in the way that they feel or that they're acting at the facility. So during the care plan meeting, you, being either the resident or the family member, should be prepared to discuss the medical care for your loved one, any like physical therapy or other therapeutic treatments that they might have as part of their plan, in addition to the meals, the planned daily activities at the facility, and their general emotional well-being. You want to make sure you ask the right questions, and you want your wishes to be documented in the care plan. So it's very important to put what you feel you need as part of their care plan, put it in writing. Documentation, documentation, documentation is the key. The meetings are held for any person who resides in the facility who's receiving health care. They help the care team. The care plans help those that are working in the facility. Everyone involved in the resident's care. The care plan shares information. They all work together to meet the person's needs. So think of it like this. If I was going to go on a hike, I would want to make sure I took a map with me. Anybody that you hire to build something in your home, they better have a floor plan of what they're going to do. If you go to the grocery store, you go with a list that helps you get what you want when you go home. So people who provide healthcare, it's kind of the same thing. They need to know what the plan is for that one individual, for each individual, really. And so to do their best, they need to have a care plan for the person that they're caring for. The care plan tells what the needs are for the resident, what the team's goals are for meeting those needs, and what steps are planned to meet those goals. So don't get too scared. Right now, I have a lot of links up on the screen that you can see. It kind of tells you a little bit more on these links, depending on the facility type that your loved one might be residing in. Don't pull out a pen to scribble this all down. Right before I started my presentation, I did copy these and put them in the chat stream. So they're included with the chat, and you can find them all right there. So here are the basics. Oops, sorry. I got a little bit mouse happy. So the care plan should be the instrument or the instructional manual explaining how to care for each person as the individual that they are. So every person in a long-term care facility has a right to good quality care. To accomplish this, the staff has to understand where the resident is, like assessing all of their skills and needs that are determined in the care plan and in their medical record. The nursing homes are required by Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security regulation to provide the care and services necessary to help residents reach or maintain their highest practicable level of well-being. So one of the most important tools for assuring that residents receive adequate care is through this resident assessment, and that takes place shortly after they are admitted into the facility. Of course, as I mentioned before, these meetings are usually held on a quarterly basis during the time that the resident is in the facility, and they have to be reevaluated. So there's a resident assessment instrument that is used to determine what's going on with the resident, and this resident assessment instrument includes the minimum data set, which these are all technical terms, and I hope not to have you run away from your computer like your hair's on fire as I bring these up. It's only temporary, it's only for a moment. The care area assessment and the resident assessment instruments or utilization guidelines are used to help assess each of the residents. So they want to plan the care to support the lifelong patterns, the current interests, and the strengths and needs of each and every resident. Evaluating the residencies is not the end of the story. The data that the staff at the facility gather from this resident assessment instrument and this care, this minimum data set, help to develop each individual resident's care plans to provide information that goes back to Medicare, the payment system, and maintain quality assurance of both the level of care in the facility, but also to keep in touch when you think about Medicare, to make sure that everything's above board as far as the services that are being provided by that particular facility. This module will discuss the resident's assessment process, the use of the resident assessment plan, data for reimbursement purposes, and for quality assurance in the services provided by that facility, when you think about it. So step one, let's look at the steps for care planning. It's usually held before or soon after, like I said, the resident is admitted to the facility. This is a chance to share information and to talk about the concerns that the resident and or family may have as they're just entering into that facility. So who's on the care plan team? When you go into these meetings in the facility, the care team includes the resident, who is the most important person on this care plan team. It includes a family and or a representative for that resident. And that's when the resident would want that person to be there. Or if that person, let's say a representative would be like a power of attorney for medical decisions, if that person needs to help possibly to either advocate or to help speak for what the wants and desires of the resident would be. The doctor who is in charge when it comes to medical care should be represented in that meeting as well. The nursing staff who provide nursing and personal care. Social services, social work staff would be there who help meet the emotional and the social needs of the resident. The rehab for like physical therapy or occupational therapy, perhaps speech therapy, should be in there as well, who help set and meet the goals for getting back on track or holding on to as much function and independence as possible, because that is actually what each resident wants, their own level of independence. So in the nursing facility, the care team also includes activity staff who help meet the needs for an active life inside the facility, the dietary staff who are there to plan the meals should there be some special needs or desires from the resident for what they eat. And at that first care plan meeting, like I mentioned before about the assessment, there's a list of the needs that the staff sees. That's presented to the resident and then to the family/representative. And this is used to help with the care plan. And it also acts as a kind of a starting point or that baseline to see how things change. So getting better or getting worse as time goes by. And the facts about the person are discussed, things like family and what their work was and what their background is, their medical and their social needs now that they're in the facility, their attitude and their interest, and what their likes and dislikes are. A plan is worked out so that everyone acts as a team and they know their part and they also know what others are doing. So at that first conference, and the more that are held down the road, changes, like I said, changes take place and it has to be revised. In Illinois, regulations state that the care plan must take place every 90 days, and that's in a skilled care nursing facility. During COVID, some facilities suspended the care plans, but that should not be the case, as family care plan meetings can take place on a conference call or a Zoom meeting, and there are facilities that did honor that and did do it, but then there were other facilities that kind of let that go along the wayside. These quarterly meetings are used to keep the assessments, the facts, and the plan, the care plan, up to date. So the care plan meeting is a time for the resident and the family and the facility staff to review all aspects of their life. So what's their personal schedule? What time do they like to get up rather than what time the staff wants to wake them? What activities do they like? And vocalize what activities you don't like. If you don't like bingo, don't go to bingo. And if it has to be in the care plan, put it in the care plan, because you certainly don't want to be escorted into the activity room to take part in bingo when you kind of like have voiced on many occasions and maybe at different volumes that you just don't flat out like bingo. What about your meals? There are certain foods you like. There are certain foods you don't like. Don't serve me lima beans. That's the phrase I'm going to have when I end up in a facility. Don't even give me lima beans unless you want a wallpaper changed in my room, because I won't eat them. So lima beans off the menu, right? Tell me what you like. What are my emotional needs? How is the staff going to help me with my emotional needs? If I need to see my family on a certain basis that helps me with my emotional needs, then the facility should be aware of that, and you can make that plan as well. And then the therapies, the physical therapy, the occupational therapy. Maybe I just had a stroke and I need you to help me get to a point where I feel I can really speak for myself. If I in my lifetime were an advocate for somebody and I have a stroke and I'm in a facility, I'm going to be very frustrated if I can't advocate for myself as my first line of attack. And then my nursing needs and my medical care should be evaluated in that care plan meeting as well. So that baseline includes the initial goals, like I said before. I'm kind of repeating myself every once in a while just to make sure that I'm drumming home the important things that come into this meeting. So the therapy services, the dietary orders, the people that also attend the meeting with you to get an idea of what this interdisciplinary team, what that looks like. We talked about the physician and the nurse who's responsible for that resident. You're also going to have the nurse's aide who's going to be responsible for that resident or in that particular wing, perhaps. And when we're talking about the dietary staff personnel there, that's usually going to be who's in charge of the kitchen. So that's when you would really voice that. And those are the kind of calls that we get where a family member or the resident is saying, I've told them more than once what I do and don't like, and yet they still refuse to, give me chocolate pie when everybody else gets chocolate pie, right? And you need to share that in the care plan meetings, because perhaps the resident doesn't know that the director of nursing has withheld the chocolate pie because, I'm a diabetic and I'm going to go into a coma if I have chocolate pie. So the resident can still say, forget that. I've been a diabetic for 40 years, but I haven't eaten chocolate pie for 60 years. I want my chocolate pie. And by golly, if that resident knows the consequences of his decision, and he says, well, heck yeah, I know if I eat it, I'm going to get really sick. Last time I was in a coma. If he knows the consequences of his actions and he still says, you need to talk to that dining director, or you need to talk to the director of nursing and tell him, feed me chocolate pie. Well, if we've told them that and that isn't going on, write it in the care plan, and then he'll get his chocolate pie. This is also where a resident can include their refusal for treatment. So if the resident is at the care plan meeting and says, every morning you give me this pink pill, and this pink pill, you give it to me 30 minutes before breakfast, and by the time I go to breakfast, I feel sick. I don't want to take that pink pill anymore. So that's a discussion by this interdisciplinary team along with the resident and the resident's family to discuss either changing the time of day that you take the pink pill, or if the resident just flat out says, I don't want to take the pink pill goes off the list and the resident no longer takes it. They have a right to turn down whatever treatment that they're receiving. So, oops, I'm so sorry. I just have like one busy finger, right? So when we continue to look at this care plan meeting, we have to remember that we all have an important role to play in the care plan. Taking part in your own care plan is the right is a right that is protected by law and one that you should take advantage of. So let the care plan team know what you think, and do one thing over another, and do what you want, and make sure that they all know what your decision is. That's the most important thing. It's also important that the resident makes, I just kind of drew a blank, but that the resident makes sure that they are an active part of that team. There should not be a discussion between the interdisciplinary team and perhaps the family, and the resident is there like a fly on the wall. That's not how it's supposed to take place. So during, right before the meeting, when you, the resident and or family member, you'll get word ahead of time when the time is going to take place for your care plan meeting. It's usually a letter in the mail for the family or the representative, and it's also, I think, a hard copy of that letter is delivered to the resident as well, and where that conference will take place. So take the time to let the staff know whether or not you plan to attend. If you want to make sure an issue or concern of yours is discussed, bring it up in the meeting. And if you're going to attend, be sure to get there on time. A lot of facilities have a tendency to pick a day of the week, perhaps a certain week of the month, where they're going to do nothing but care plans, and they schedule them back to back to back. So get there on time, and it doesn't even hurt to get there a little bit early. The facilities like to, like I said, plan the entire day doing nothing but care plans. And so get there so that you're early enough so you have time to meet who else is going to be in that care plan meeting, and things won't be so hurried. If you're the family member or a friend, you may be involved because the person asked you to attend, or because the person no longer is able to understand or make decisions, and you're there as his or her health care representative. You know, either way, you can help by being a familiar face and providing support, and by helping staff understand as much as possible about who this person is, this resident. Who are they? So jot down any questions or concerns you have before the meeting, and make sure and make a note of any facts that you think the care plan team should know about. Other appropriate staff or professionals who are attending the meeting are there perhaps on the resident's request. The resident can request other people to be there. So again, it occurs quarterly after each assessment. So those assessments should be brought up in that meeting, and that interdisciplinary team should be sharing with the representative and the resident what the most recent assessment showed them. So again, it's a very important that if there's something sent by that interdisciplinary team that you don't understand, perhaps they're using medical terminology, perhaps they're using acronyms, perhaps they're speaking so quickly that you don't understand where they're going with their message. If you don't understand a point, ask to go over it again. And if you don't agree with something, it's important that you let them know that you don't agree. If, while you're in that meeting, if perhaps you're the part of the staff, you know, they're there to explain and to answer those questions. So when you're asking a question of that interdisciplinary team, they should have answers for you to whatever questions you have. They will also take your questions and they'll take it back with them to others on the care team who couldn't attend, so that everyone knows the plan and everybody knows what your concerns are, and everybody knows what your questions were and how they were answered and what your expectations are from that meeting. So how to use a care plan effectively. So you have to make sure that you involve the resident in the care conversation, and have them a part of, let them feel empowered that they are setting their own goals and approaches for where they're going with this care plan. Include the nurse's aide to help articulate care needs and how the resident is doing. So all of those messages from the people on the team should be articulated in a way that the resident can understand and that the resident knows how they're doing. Use a care plan when the facility may disagree with what the resident wants to do. There can be that discussion about the chocolate pie. There can be the discussion about what the DON feels that should be going on, about how maybe he shouldn't have the chocolate pie. And the dining manager can get involved. But the bottom line is the resident has that right to ask for certain goals, certain expectations, to ask for chocolate pie when they're in the care plan. And then the last bullet point is to stay away from computer-generated problems, goals, and approaches. So what it shouldn't like. This is basically telling you what you don't want to see in a care plan meeting. People talking about the person, the resident, and that the resident has no input in the care plan conversation at all. They're basically treated as just a fly on the wall, and not the discussion is not directed towards them. Again, as I mentioned before, if you don't understand something because of the medical language and you're unaware of what it means, that can make some people feel very intimidated, as if they speak up, that it's showing that they don't understand what's being said. So don't let that happen in a care plan meeting. And it's okay to just say, okay, you guys are talking way above me. You're going right over my head. I need you to dummy it down. So make sure that that doesn't happen. A bunch of department heads sitting in a room at one end of a table who don't really even know who the person is, other than the person whose file they see before them on a computer screen. Make sure they know who you're talking about and who you are. Make sure when they see the resident in the room that they recognize them and talk to them as somebody that they see on a daily basis. And don't have a long and involved conversation. These care plan meetings, like I said, are usually scheduled back to back to back. You're not really going to go beyond that 15 to 20 minutes that they schedule these. If the person needs more time, the person being the resident and or representative family member, schedule another meeting where everybody can dig a little bit deeper into what the needs are, the wants and the desires of the resident. Here's an example. So you have a resident who has COPD, and the resident wants to continue smoking. And the facility knows that this is going to affect their health. So in that care plan meeting, when you're discussing the care plan, and the wants and desires of the residents are included in there, there also may be an opportunity for the healthcare staff to discuss educating that resident about the effects of their choice. But they are still allowed to do what they want. When the resident or no longer understands what's happening, either because of Alzheimer's or a stroke or some other condition, they're still an important part of the care team. So his or her right to take part in the care planning doesn't go away just because they're incapacitated. But you may have to attend if you are the representative or the family member and speak for the person as a stand-in. And if this should happen, your job is to say and do what the resident would want for himself, not what you would want for him. So you would not talk about how you see all of the bad effects of smoking while you have COPD. This is not your time to get your loved one off of smoking because you are aware of the health risks. You have to remember that that resident still wants to smoke, and there still needs to be a way for the facility to accommodate the wishes of the resident. So, our care plan conference is important. I mean, do you think that we really need to have those on a quarterly basis? You bet they're important. They help make sure that there's a team approach to the care for the resident. They help make sure everyone's providing care and has all the facts that they need to provide that care. And they help make sure everyone understands three key things: the person's needs, the goals set up to meet those needs, and the plan for reaching the goal. So before we get to questions, Q&A, I'm going to start with the very first question because I'm just wondering where everybody is that's listening in on this presentation. So the first question is, what if you don't live nearby? What if you are a representative for a resident or a family member and you want to attend these care plan meetings, but you can't physically get there because of where you live? If you can't attend because of distance, you can still help the care team. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, because of COVID, a conference calling has taken place, Zoom meetings have taken place, but if you can't attend because of distance, you can still help the care team. So if you get notice of this care plan meeting, you can raise questions or concerns by calling or sending a letter or an email with that person that you're in contact with who's a staff member, such as a social worker at the facility. So you can let them know ahead of time about your concerns. And then knowing when that care plan meeting is scheduled, after that time, you could call that staff person again and ask what was discussed at the care plan meeting. You can find out what new information you should be aware of. And if you can't usually attend, but let's say you're planning a visit to visit your mom or your dad, and so you're planning vacation to come and visit, and you're going to be in town, but golly gee, it's not during that care plan meeting, I'm off by like a month or something. Let them know that if you're coming into town, you can schedule with enough notice, you can schedule a meeting with that interdisciplinary team to have a care plan meeting when you are in town, and have that conference with the team and make it an effective and a rich, robust care plan meeting for your loved one in the facility. Anybody else have any questions?
There are several questions, Teresa. The first one, and I already answered this in the chat, but I'll go ahead and read it. Should I be provided with a care plan document as I am the primary caregiver and POA for healthcare for my mom?
Okay, can you repeat that? Because I'm having problems. I've lost the whole meeting except for audio on my meeting.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I can hear you. I just can't see anything but the beautiful picture of my grandson on my screen, which is very distracting, I should tell you.
Should the POA be able to get the care plan document?
Yes. Period. Yes.
One thing to note though, I think maybe Teresa, could you provide more clarity, or someone else? Is it expected that they'll just hand it to you, or is it something you need to ask for?
It's something that you would ask for. And I can tell you that from my own experience, where the facility didn't readily ask if I wanted a copy. And I would say that just because of my knowledge of what I do, that I did ask for a copy.
And this is Lee. For the baseline care plan, we just got a quick picture of your grandson, Teresa, very, very quickly popped up on the screen. But if someone's in a skilled nursing facility and they have to do that baseline care plan, which has to happen 48 hours from admission, that is a document that they're supposed to be handing to the resident and their family member. So the first care plan, that's the first one when you first initially get admitted into a building, you should be getting a copy of that. And that's something you really want to make sure happens, because this is where they don't know your family member yet. They're just brand new to the building. So this is that primary place to be able to make sure that those things are being taken care of, that you know your mother or your father, your loved one needs, or for yourself, that I need to have in order for me to have that quality of care and quality of life that I need to have. So that has to be required to you if you're in skilled nursing. But then
and you know what? And when you think of that initial meeting, when they're talking about the assessments, the medical records, and coming up with a plan for your loved one, part of that plan is that's kind of like the first meeting to say, depending on what, if you're in there for a long time or not. If you're not planning on being there for a long time, that's the first place you're discussing about what the needs are to help you. It's the first meeting really in your discharge care plan. I mean, it's like especially when you're in there on a physical rehab or something, how do we get you to the point where you get to go home? That's like one of the things that should be talked about and readdressed every time you have your care plan meeting if you're somebody that's in a facility for what's supposed to be a shorter stay.
So our next question is, can you please explain the residents' rights regardless if they have a POA or guardian?
If the resident has a power of attorney agent for medical and or financial, let's say medical at this point, and the POA says, don't give my dad that chocolate pie. And the resident says, I want that chocolate pie. As long as that resident is conscious and able to say, I want chocolate pie, he gets that chocolate pie. And it's an educational opportunity for the facility, and or if it comes into our office, it's an educational awareness opportunity to let the power of attorney know that as long as your loved one is conscious and able to say the words, I want chocolate pie, we listen to him primarily. Your position as the power of attorney agent is to for us to call on you should your loved one be unconscious or unable to speak and tell us what they want. Then we do default to the power of attorney agent.
And guardianship, some of that's going to depend on what the guardianship paperwork says. And honestly, I'm not as well versed in guardianship as I am with power of attorney, but with the guardianships, the resident always has the right to give their opinion. They always have the right, like for finances, they have the right to review their finances. I believe they still have the right to, be informed, so they can still attend care plan meetings. I can't remember what else there is.
They have the right to refuse treatment, I believe.
Yes, that too.
But the guardian has a lot of power over the decisions for care for the resident. Next question. Is that enough of an answer for you? If there's more, I'm willing to let anybody with a subject matter expert on this topic to step in. Otherwise, we can go to the next question.
Yeah. I'm looking. How soon after the care plan meeting should a copy of the care plan be provided to the family?
That's a very good question.
So when I answered this in the comments, and if they're putting the care plan, like if they're in the meeting and changing it, as you're discussing it, they should be able to print it out before you leave the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
If not, if they're doing it on paper and then going to the computer and changing it later, it might be a couple of days.
Right.
Sorry. Anytime you request paperwork, you should be getting it back in. You should be getting the paperwork within 2 days. You might have to pay a reasonable fee for the copies.
Right. I don't think that it should be more than a couple of days, because they are, if I've been in a care plan meeting and they are constantly typing everything, I don't think they're just copying what I'm saying. I think that they're putting in the information that we want in the care plan. Now, if they do need to, polish the verbiage based on what we talk about in the meeting, I could give you a couple of days for that. But when I got my mom's, it was emailed to me in 2 days. So it was an email.
Our care plan meetings required every 90 days.
Yes, in a skilled care nursing facility, they are. And that is something when IDPH, Illinois Department of Public Health, who is a regulating agency over all long-term care facilities in the state, when they go into audit paperwork, they look for that. So they do look at care plans. If they're given a heads up to look at specific care plans, that's one thing, but they do look to make sure that those care plans are done every 90 days.
And the person who asked that, make sure you're reaching out to your ombudsman if you're not being notified of your care plan meeting. The care plan meeting, they have to notify you of it, and they have to make it accessible for you.
Mhm.
And so it shouldn't be, at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, because if you always take a nap right after lunch.
Right.
So that's what accessible means. If you're not able to get out of your bed, they should be coming to you for this care plan meeting.
And I'll tell you what, I shouldn't say most, I would say the facilities that I've worked with are pretty accommodating in the case where you call up, and we've called to say, hey, just got notification of the care plan meeting, which is scheduled for next week. So we get maybe less than a week's notice, and then conferring with another family member, we find out that it's not a convenient time. We call right away and say, can we pick a different day or a different time of the day? And they are very accommodating for that. They do accommodate changing.
And sometimes when that happens, you may not get the whole team, because the whole team may not be able to be there because they might not be working. So you might get a representative from the team. So it might not look the same if you have something like that happening. And no, you can even request for something like that to happen in the evening time. Let's say you work every day and you can't, you cannot get away from work in order to attend that care plan meeting. So you can request something at night, and a staff member should be able to talk it through with you via the phone, if that works best for you. But again, it is about making sure that you get that information. And one of the things that they do look for, that Teresa did when the survey team, the Illinois Department of Public Health, comes in and looks at this requirement, they do look to see if people signed. So they might ask you to then sign off on that care plan, that you attended that care plan. The resident attended the care plan, the family member attended the care plan. So that's an important thing to know, that they might be asking you to sign a document. That document is only saying that you participated in the meeting. It doesn't mean that you necessarily agree with everything. Like if you haven't gotten a hard copy of it yet, you don't have to be hesitant to sign it, because it does mean that you just attended the meeting. And then you can go back and say, you know what, now that I got the hard copy, this needs to be added in. Mom wants her chocolate cake and she's not getting it. Can you please make sure that gets put into the care plan? And I'd like to see a copy of it after that gets included in the care. I'd like to see another copy of the care plan once that gets included in. And I think it's also important to articulate here about the differences really in assisted living. Assisted living is that it's only once a year that it's required to do the service plan. That's the language that they use in assisted living, or if other needs arise for somebody. So I think that we have to understand the difference there about what the requirement says in the regulations. Skilled care, it is every 90 days, every 3 months is what is required for skilled and intermediate care.
So to make sure people understand too, when you sign in stating that you're there and you're present, that is just that. If they're asking you to sign because they want you to agree with it, you also have the right to write on there, you don't agree with this, or, make those changes, because sometimes they just try to run with the assumption of, oh, you signed in, you're just going to agree to things. So, I tell people all the time, make sure if they're asking you to sign the care plan, you know what you're signing and that you're agreeing to what's in there before you do that.
Okay.
Yes, and we've been talking about. I've been going through the comments. If you have a significant change, you go to the hospital and you come back, or you have a fall or something, that can also trigger a care plan. And so, if something big has happened, ask if they haven't talked to you about a care plan meeting, ask if they're going to hold one.
So Steve, you bring up a good point, Steve, because Stephen, that is many times that hospital might trigger that significant event, and most nursing home staff are triggered themselves into looking at that individual when they return to see if a change happened in that person. But sometimes a hospitalization might not necessarily trigger a change. A change might be happening with the person outside of that. And that's where you as a family member, or you as yourself, might recognize there's something going on I would like my assessments redone, my loved one's assessments redone to try to pinpoint what is going on with me. And it may dictate that lab work happens. It may dictate that even, it could be, let's say I lost my loved one. Let's say I lived in the nursing home. My husband was alive still. My husband died. Now, all of a sudden you're seeing a change in my condition. I didn't go out to the hospital, but this could be changing a lot in the quality to my life. And I might not want to eat anymore. I might be losing weight. I, might become lethargic. I might not be attending programs anymore. So that would be considered a significant change. And they should be revisiting a care plan or something like that. So, and sometimes the staff might not be privy to some of that knowledge. And this is where, as that loved one, that person who, the family member, can help the facility understand that there is a significant change happening in my mother's life that may not trigger a hospitalization, but could you please explore that and take a look at that? I want to know if it's because she's missing my father, or has her health condition declined for an extraneous reason instead of that. So to be able to make sure that you're in control. This is your directions. I love care plans. I don't know. I mean, I think that they are the thing that that empower us. They empower us to be involved in our own care. So it's so important that at every 90 days, if you're in a skilled or intermediate care facility, that you are a part of this meeting, that you are attending this meeting, that you have your nurse's aide in that meeting. Your nurse's aide needs to be in attendance at that meeting. That is a requirement. And if they're that nurse's aide, it shouldn't be the CNA who schedules the nurse's aides. It should be your own nurse's aide. Should be in that meeting because they know more about you than you might even know about yourself at that point, because they know that you've got something that potentially could be developing on your back that could turn into a pressure sore, and you might not even be aware of it, but they know because they're there helping you to change in the day. They know what's happening with you, so they could be your strongest advocate to make sure that you continue to live that good quality to your life.
And as whether it's a resident or a family member, you have the right to ask for things to be put into that care plan too.
Absolutely.
And goals. If your mom wants her coffee every day at 8 a.m., you can say, I want that written in the same way my son has in, things in his of he does not want woken up in the morning. He'll let you know when he's ready to wake up. And he'll be very vocal to tell people that. So the resident or the family can say, I want this in there.
This is also a good spot too when you hear a lot of complaints from residents that say they make me take a shower at 5 a.m. I never took a shower at 5 a.m. my whole life. Then let's map out and find out a time of the day that you want your shower and put it in there. I know it sounds small and petty, but when I went to see my mom, I would say, could you guys just run the brush through her hair every day when you help her get up? Can you just brush her hair? Oh, we forgot that. It took me 4 or 5 times of saying that when they'd say, yeah, we'll get to that. We're just sorry, we just didn't get to it. So you know what I did? I put it in the care plan. I thought, you will comb her hair in the morning. I should not have to tell you that. And a simple oh, sorry, you wouldn't get to it is not enough for me anymore. Nope, it's in the care plan. You'll brush her hair. It's so small, but that's the person that she is.
And this is Deb Birdsall, and I totally agree with what Teresa and Carrie and everybody have been saying. I was care plan coordinator for 6 years, so exactly what you have said. The other thing that you do have to make sure, and this is just a suggestion, is that CNA assignment sheets need to align with that care plan, and they have to have a process in place. So if something is put into the care plan, that it's reflected in the assignment sheets. That's critical. That's absolutely critical.
Oh, good point, Deb, because I have seen that where, especially when when facilities hire agency staff, agency have no clue what's going on, and they would bring people, this is before COVID, bring the people into the dining area and not even know which are the people that need to have assistance in being fed. They don't even know that,
I'm a big advocate of having really good CNA assignment sheets. It just really, and good communication so people I'm sorry, my puppy is deciding that there's somebody outside he wants to see. But it's very important that you, make sure that continuation. That was one thing I was very excited with the 2016, what I call the mega rule, where they really emphasized more clearly and required more clearly participation of the interdisciplinary team that included the CNA.
Yes. And I feel that if the CNA is at the meeting, they're much more liable. They heard it themselves than somebody saying to them, your mother wants a cup of coffee at nighttime. I'm going to remember that. And I'm also going to know that she's going to have a better night. If
So
I give her that cup of coffee and she's
So I have a
life
question with that,
better.
Deb. So when they do the ISPs at our side, my end of it, am I allowed to say I want the DSPs on there? Because that's always annoyed me because the DSPs.
Well, it depends on your licensure. See, that's a requirement of skilled and intermediate. I don't know if it's in I don't know your regs that well. Sorry.
We're ICFDD.
And I don't know if it's in ICFDD because that's
Okay.
a state level. I don't know what to tell you there. You're going to have to check
No,
somebody.
that's fine. I'm just
Sorry,
curious.
Carrie.
That's okay. I can dig. You know that. It's okay.
So Carrie, the
Well-
One thing that
regulations.
is important to note as we're talking about the participation by the CNA, or really the participation by anyone listed in the regs on the interdisciplinary team, so the attending physician, the registered nurse, the nurse aide, someone from dietary, the regs don't say they have to be at the meeting. So we talk about
Yeah.
the situation
right.
as if they're there, they have to participate in the planning process. So they have to be consulted.
Yes.
The best meeting is when they're in the room.
Yep.
But the regs don't require them to be in the room. So I want to make sure everybody is
That's a
on the
very
same
good
page
point.
with
Yes,
with
that's
that.
a very good point. Very, very good point.
And Carrie, to your question, I mean, you can always ask that they be present. So I want to kind of jump back into the chat because there's a lot of messages here.
Can I,
So
before you jump in, can I say one thing? This is Joyce.
Yes.
I had asked a few questions. So one of the comments that I get is, so my mom has now developed a stage 2 bed sore. It was just a pressure point, and she just developed this. And I kind of found out that, like, sometimes the night shift gives her a bedpan, and sometimes she has to wait 30, and she's continent, but sometimes she has to wait and has an accident. And I think, I can't say that it's directly related, but it's definitely in the area where a bedpan would hit. And I have talked to them, and just last weekend I was there and I witnessed a 30-minute wait for the call button to be answered. And then I went in the hall and still could, and what I was calling about was because I smelled urine, but her bed wasn't wet, but and it's a nice facility, but it smelled like urine. It wasn't wet. So it had happened at some point in time and dried by 4 o'clock. And I could not find a nurse or a CNA at the desk or on the floor. I ended up finding the cart changing the sheets myself. And the nurse, I do not blame the nurse. I do not blame the CNA. They just keep saying we're so short-staffed. We're so short-staffed. And I talked to the director right after that. I texted her in the middle of the night and texted her, and like, I think she's like, well, we'll have to have a care meeting, because I said now she's a stage 2 wound. So I haven't heard yet about the care meeting, but my concern is and today they were having a meeting where you could go, like the residents could go and complain, they're not complain, but their concerns. And my mom doesn't want to go. She's afraid. She's 97. She's afraid they won't be nice to her if she complains. But I witnessed her roommate push the button 15 minutes. I pushed the button for a bed change. So it wasn't, obviously an emergency. But then after a half hour, I went out, and they have excellent nurse, excellent CNA, but one was feeding a patient, a resident, and the nurse was doing meds. What do you do in a situation like that? 30 minutes is like, you can't have a continent 97-year-old wait 30 minutes. You can't have them wait 15 minutes. What do we do about that? I mean, how do we address that in a care plan, I guess? Any thoughts?
Well, I know that if they are indeed short-staffed, they have protocol in place if they are short-staffed where they are supposed to follow that protocol to get more staff in there? So I don't understand why they're not following that protocol.
They're saying nobody wants to work anymore. That's kind of what I get from, we're trying to hire, nobody wants to work. But that's not the problem of a 97-year-old person. Like, she needs to be toileted.
You need to
I
go to
don't
the,
want to put her in a diaper because she's continent.
you need to go to the administrator. if
I
they're short-
did.
Okay, if that don't work, go to IDPH, because I got the same problem at my facility. We have to wait on call lights, and all you gotta do is file a complaint.
Yeah,
How,
think,
I mean,
Joyce,
what is
you're-
I mean, what is there a time like frame that someone should answer a call light, or that you can put in a care plan within X amount of time, or is that not something you
No,
can?
there's no time frame for call lights. That needs to be talked about one of these days. There's no time frame for CNAs to get your room. Sometimes I wait an hour, but I get on my phone and I call managers and whoever I can get hold of, and then I put a report into the administrator. And sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. When I don't get treated right, I go right to the top. I even go to the president if I have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Joyce, to your question on low staffing and speaking specifically to the low staffing issue, that is an issue that is statewide,
Mhm.
and it's been going on for years. And
Right. I get it.
we can't even begin to scratch the surface of why that problem exists. And you mentioned a meeting earlier.
Yes.
That would have been either one of two meetings. That would have either been the resident council meeting.
That was the resident. I think that's what it was today, but she didn't want to go.
Okay, so the resident council, we've talked about it a few times before. It's a forum with residents. There's generally a single staff who's in there helping take notes,
Yes.
but it is a resident-led meeting, and it's a great place to go and say, hey, I'm having issues with my call light. Who else is having issues? And I know you asked earlier, who's the ombudsman for Lake County?
Yes, I did. I got
So,
that.
you've got that, okay. So,
Thank
and right at the top of the chat is that information.
Thank you. Yes, I signed in a few minutes late, so, but I will.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And I know that everyone's short-staffed, and I know it's just, and I don't mind doing what I need to do when I get there, but I'm finding that I'm doing quite a bit. And but what concerns me is I can't be there.
And Joyce, you articulated so well what the frustrations have been for, like Stephen said, for years. When you enter into this group living situation, it is so imperfect. And there are so many perfect people that live there, loved ones that need the attention. And for so many years, personally, I just wished I had that magic wand that could just have this disappear, because nobody should ever have to wait to go to the bathroom. But this is such the unfortunate piece about people that live in long-term care facilities, that people every single solitary day are waiting to have to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And it just feels so wrong. And I wish somebody could come up with the solution. And I have no idea what that will ever look like.
Yeah, I just am very concerned because of that bed sore, which I toilet her sometimes. And I've watched it, just being red. And then like a week went by, and that's when I noticed the bed had been wet, and then her clothing, like in the hamper, smelled wet. So I don't know what happened, but then wound care did call me. They were very good, and they've kept in touch. They had a wound doctor look, but I saw it today and it doesn't look good at all.
So Lee, sorry, before we go in, we just hit 4 o'clock. And so before everybody starts leaving, because our scheduled time is over, Lee, could you give just a little blurb on our next meeting? And then we can jump right back into questions, because there's there's a lot of messages here.
Mhm.
Oh, you know what, Stephen, thank you, because what a great conversation this
Oh,
is.
yeah.
A conversation. And I wasn't even paying attention to the clock because this is stuff we can talk about all day long. So next time, we're actually going to be talking about dementia and what dementia is. And I do notice that there are some comments about people, they're wondering about how do you advocate for those? How do you get a care plan written for people that have dementia? We can address that in a second. But we're going to be talking about dementia and what the different types of dementia are, because there's a lot of them out there. There's over 200. I've actually at one point there was like over 500, but there's so many different types of dementia, and we'll have somebody from the Alzheimer's Association is going to be presenting on that for us. So that should be a really great conversation. And the date of that one is August 3rd. So it'll be August 3rd again. We always do these at 3 o'clock, and it's the same link that you used to join today. And then before anybody goes, I'm going to put in that last, make sure you type in your email address in the chat box if you would like me to send you the flyer and the invite for the town hall that we are having next Wednesday at 10 o'clock. On the 28th, Wednesday, the 28th at 10 o'clock. And actually, some people that are on this call will be joining us. So we're really, really looking forward to this because this is such a wonderful opportunity to be able to bring some of the things that we talk about even at this meeting to even a greater light and greater exposure. So we're really excited for that to happen. So please join us in that meeting as well. So I'm going to continue to record this because people down the line might not want to listen to this, but do feel free to leave and we'll continue to address some of those questions. If we could just address one question that I got privately in my chat box, they probably meant to send it out to everybody, but I want to make sure that we see that. And that was on assignment sheets. It was just assignment sheets. My brother's in a long-term care facility and uses a lot of agencies. So assignment sheets, what do they look like? I think would probably be what that question would be. They're personalized by the facilities, but it's a sheet that basically might say what time people shower, what time do they eat, what time. It has like personalized needs. Can be, it's kind of the care plan in abbreviated format for nurses' aides. I think that's probably the best way, so that if somebody new is coming to care for somebody, they can hand them the assignment sheet, they could take that assignment sheet and then be able to know what they need to do to be able to care for that individual well. So
I had a question pop up here. Will IDPH only check records if there's a complaint about care plan meetings? So when they're coming in to do a survey, they're going to sample care plans. But if you file a complaint about care plans, then they'll pull yours and then they might pull a few others.
And they would probably dive deeper into the process of it as well.
Yes.
And that would be that big part would be who has been included on the development of that care plan. Was the family invited? Was the resident invited? And which is I always say to facilities, I mean, shame on us, shame on anybody for talking behind other people's back. Mm-hmm. So when you do a care plan meeting, and if you don't invite the person you're talking about, shame on you. They should be invited to that meeting so if they have a voice. Otherwise, you are talking behind people's back, and that no one should ever do that. That's just rude. So it's really important that the individual themselves, no matter what their cognitive level is like, they should be in that meeting. I've been in care plan meetings where literally staff have debated over somebody's cognitive ability. Well, they don't remember me when I walk in. Well, they remember me. And there's arguments about it. What is their cognition? If the person's sitting right there, you just ask them. It solves everything when the person is there. You don't have to debate. You can go right to the horse's mouth and ask them the questions to find out what their needs are. So.
And Joyce, especially like with yours right now, start documenting what the pressure sure looks like when you're there. If you've pushed the button and you've waited 30 minutes, who you went and reached out to. And there's times when I can't find somebody in my son's facility, I call the main number from sitting in his room and press 0 and keep calling until
Yeah. Oh no, believe me, I talked to the director in person. She did tell me, which I thought was, and my mom, I have to say, has been getting pretty good care. I mean, I'm not complaining. I heard.
No, I understand that you hear
But-
me say all the time, Lynn gets good care, but
Right.
there are no perfect facilities. None,
Right,
it
but-
can't be.
She did tell me, she goes, well, you don't email me because sometimes I don't get to my emails. Just send me a text message. I'm like, no, I'll just email you because it's been almost a week now and no care plan meeting has been called. And then I heard that there's only one social worker for the whole facility now, like everyone's quit. So at some point, administration from another facility, because there's more than one, needs to like show up then. That's kind of my thought.
Well,
Mhm.
that's when you figure out who's over them and you email all of them together.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know what? I talked to someone and they were like, well, you don't really want to do that because then you're starting to ruffle feathers and
No,
and
it's
everything.
productive, trust me.
Yeah.
Email leaves a paper trail.
What's that?
Email leaves a paper trail. That's
Right,
what
and I did ask, the email that I sent to the director, I asked her to pass it on to who was above her, because I didn't know who that was at a, at a higher level. So I guess I need to figure out who that is so I can send that email to that person also.
Hey, Bruce and I are really good at figuring out how you keep going higher and higher, aren't we, Bruce?
Yeah, yeah. If you need it, I got a whole list of people I'm working on for the whole state of facilities and everything. So if you ever want to know who anybody is, I probably got them on my list.
Okay, okay. And you know what? And my mom, someone had said that no one should be afraid to come to be,
Right.
give a concern. My mom's just nice. It's not like she is afraid. She goes, what if like, then they don't like me? She's just nice. So she's not like afraid they're going to hurt her. She's just nice and doesn't,
Mhm.
she's like, it's okay. I could
Yeah.
wait. But the next time when she wets herself, who does she call? She calls me because she wet herself and it wasn't okay that time. So,
Well, and there's a lot of psychology behind that, Joyce.
yes.
We have fear responses. You either fight, flight, or you freeze.
Right.
And when you can't fight or run, you tend to freeze up. And so that's why we see a lot of reluctance to speak out.
Right.
We had an interesting question that I'm not sure what the answer to is, but how long after an assisted living resident passes is the assisted living required to keep the resident's records?
Personally, I would have to look in the assisted living regulations under their record requirements, which I could do. And if the conversation is continuing, I will go ahead and I can take a look at that.
I thought
So-
Jess answered that at 3 years.
Yep, Chuck answered 3-year record retention requirements.
Okay,
So I'm finding questions and then
Yeah.
I'm just staying at the question when I find it.
someone mentioned about the facility that goals may not necessarily, they don't necessarily share goals during the care plan. They might share what the problems are, but they're not sharing the specific goal. And I do agree. I feel that they have to be measurable. Goals are supposed to be measurable. They can't just be the person's going to do it more. Well, what does more mean? Or the person's, they're just going, it has to be extremely measurable. That's what a goal is. So it's much more helpful for the individual to know that the care plan goal, I'm losing weight. They want me to eat more. They're concerned about my weight because it's affecting my physical condition, my skin condition. It's affecting my whole overall general health. So they want me to eat at least 50% of my meal. That's so helpful for me to know that, because then when I have those couple of bites left on my plate and I only took I'd be like, I don't want to do it, but I can be like, but they told me if I ate at least 50%, I'd start to feel better. I'm going to make myself do that. So I think it is important. These are our goals. Again, we should know what our goals are. So if you're in a care plan meeting and they're just talking vaguely about stuff, ask for that specific stuff, because sometimes that can be empowering to people so that they can be more involved and on their care. And they can feel more in control of what it is that what their life is looking like.
So I had a comment here from an ombudsman, and she wrote that when you're going through your care plan, and sorry, if I'm coming in kind of as in a non sequitur way, I'm not listening so much as reading through. This comment seemed pretty good to me. Make sure that your care plan goals are written in a measurable way. And when you're addressing concerns, make sure that they're not just blowing them off in the written documentation. Make sure you're actually they're writing out the concerns and how they were addressed, not just we addressed concerns. So documentation is your friend.
And I'm going to give you guys an example for what Stephen just said. So there's a facility that Stephen and I have been helping people with that kept saying they addressed this family member's concerns and it was all taken care of, but would never actually say what the concerns were. And when the family members would not agree to signing their papers saying they agreed to that all the problems were resolved and they would follow the rules and all these, it's a lot. But they then decided, okay, we're just gonna send the family a letter saying you're not allowed on the property any longer. So you want that documentation for your sake as well as theirs.
Mhm.
Because that they kept just writing concerns addressed, but the facility wouldn't actually go into what the concerns were.
There was another question regarding hospice and a new care plan for hospice. It's actually hospice situation is considered a significant change. So every time an individual goes onto hospice, a new care plan should be written, and every time they come off of hospice, a new care plan should be written. So know that information as well. Hospice coming on or coming off is considered a significant change, and a new care plan should be written.
And that's an important thing that I want to kind of pull out of what you just said. Most people think of you go on hospice and that's it, but that's not the case anymore. The kind of the model for what hospice is has changed over the years. So you can go on hospice and come off of it if you've recovered.
And we will be talking about hospice on August 17th, I believe. I think that's the date that we're going to be talking about hospice and palliative care. What's the difference? Great commercial for that one, Stephen.
You're welcome. I have gotten towards the end of the chat and I'm not seeing any more questions that haven't been answered.
There is one question. How do care plans from long-term care insurance figure into this? Do they follow the same guidelines? I don't know what that would be. Long-term care insurance care plans.
I'm not sure about that either. I mean, it doesn't matter who your payer source is.
Yeah. Catherine, you're on the line too. Still, if you'd like to unmute yourself and explain, maybe you could explain a little bit more to us. Catherine Ray.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, so my question is based upon I'm talking about the long-term care insurance companies that do care management for residents in skilled facilities. So a lot are writing care plans. So would those care plans follow the same general guidelines as what's required for the skilled facilities as far as due dates, or would they be under a different set of guidelines? Does that make sense?
I was not aware that long-term care insurance companies were doing that.
So we think of managed care, right? If someone's under managed care, they're likely getting a care plan written. So I don't know the answer, but I understand the question. But I'm not sure that, I don't know if, I mean, logic would say they should mirror one another, but
right.
I don't know practically how that works.
Sorry, Catherine.
That's okay, thank you.
So we had a question, how do we view today's recording?
Have we gotten
And
better with that yet?
Have we gotten better with that yet? I don't know. Lee, have we gotten better with posting?
Yes, yes, they are. They've all been sent off to our powers that be. And so they should be posted. I have not actually had a chance to check them, if they have been posted onto the website yet or not. I have not had a chance to look at that, but they've all been sent off.
And I
You're
will
gonna
be
start-
posting that link here in a second.
Okay, wonderful.
And you'll start putting those on Facebook link also once you,
That
have
is,
them?
that is the plan.
okay.
And that's been the directive, what we've been
Perfect.
directed to do, so.
All right. And I just put the link to the Resident and Family Support Council information page on in the chat, so you can check that out and view some of the past ones. I don't think all of them are up there, but some of them.
Lee,
I
before
did-
we go, can you plug the town hall?
I'll plug it again. So again, we have our town hall meeting that's happening next, we're doing it next Wednesday, the 28th at 10 o'clock. And please make sure you type in your email address and I will send you that information off ASAP so that you can have the link to attend that meeting on next Wednesday. The purpose of this meeting is to really give a voice to the residents that live in long-term care communities. And we have IDPH joining us, Dr. Kennard, Karen Birdsall, and Karen Trimberger, and Becky Dracu are all going to be joining us on that call as well. And then Bruce Carmona, who has been a loyal participant in our Resident and Family Support Council, is our resident representative for that meeting. So we're really excited about this. And we are hoping that we get to see all of you at that meeting next Wednesday.
Have you guys issued a press release for that?
One was written. I don't know the plan on.
I think it's
I don't
going
know.
out tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. And I'm gonna follow up with my media contacts, just figuring in any direction we can go to try to get this everywhere.
Yeah, we didn't want it too far in advance that it would like fall through the cracks. So it was
So-
suggested that we wait. So I think if it's not tomorrow, it's Thursday.
Okay, and what's the capacity on that one?
It's over any, there is no capacity limit.
Okay, good. Because I know the ones that I've watched from New Jersey and other places have hit 800, 900.
Yeah, don't have any.
Perfect, okay. So I guess I'll talk to you guys later and Stephen, as of right now, I'm tentatively shooting for Tuesday for Quincy.
Okay. Yeah, just keep me posted.
Well, you're gonna have to let me know how many surveys you've gotten back. Is it worth me driving to Quincy?
I've got 25 right now.
Hey,
So
that's
we'll
not
see.
bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Okay, cool. So, okay, take care.
Yep.